If you're looking to build a deeper connection with your audience this year and you're a passionate business owner with a message to share, then I would love to help you do that via podcasting. If you're interested in starting a podcast this year, head over to donnaeade.com/apply to register your interest today. Don't forget to hit subscribe where you listen and rate and review the podcast if you've enjoyed it. You can also share this episode with a friend. It is a great way to help the podcast out to get to more listeners just like you. You're listening to the Mindset and Action Podcast, the place to be to grow and streamline your business. I'm your host, Donna Eade. Let's jump into the show. Welcome back to the 200th episode of the Mindset and Action Podcast. I can't actually believe that we are at episode 200. It's absolutely insane. Let's jump in. Welcome, everybody. If you are a new listener to the podcast, then I am so grateful to have you here today on this epic number of 200 episodes. This means that I have been podcasting for almost 4 years at this point. We started in April 2020 on the 16th, and we've been going ever since. And there have been weeks where I've put out a few bonus episodes, and I now put out 2 episodes a week, since the beginning of January. So we are a little bit higher, I think, or about balanced for the number of weeks that we've been going. But that's an aside. We're at 200 and it doesn't really matter how we got here, but we got here. But it is important actually to recognize the how, because this is part of the seeing where people are and thinking you can never get there. Something that I have been guilty of in my journey is looking at people that are on their step 20 and saying, well, I can never do that. But you've got to start with that first step. Step 1 is the most important. And I started that step 1 in April 2020. And here we are in January 2024, and I'm still putting out these podcast episodes for you. And I wouldn't be doing it if nobody was downloading it. So I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who downloads the episode, everybody who listens to the episode. I really want to say thank you for doing that. So in today's episode, we're going to do a few things. So I'm not sure how long we're going to go for. However, we are going to talk about some of the highlights that have happened over the last 4 years. So I'm really excited to take a little bit of a dive back and reflect on where we have been. I'm also going to talk to you about my program, Start Your Podcast. So if podcasting is something that you want to do, then I would like to share with you how you can do that with me. And then I'm also going to talk to you about how I am changing my calendar to better suit me than everybody else in the world that says that we need to do things a certain way. And I'm going to talk about a few things in there as well. So make sure that you stick around for that section. I'm just really excited. I'm just really excited to have made it here, and I'm really excited to be sharing this with you. If you are a long-time listener, I want to say thank you, because you guys being the core listeners, the people who download every week, you are who has kept me going throughout the 4 years. If you are a first-time listener, then I would urge you to hit the subscribe button so that you can be here in the next 4 years and we can be talking about 8 years on the podcast. Oh my days, wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, so I wanted to jump into some of the highlights of the last 4 years. And of course, I wouldn't be able to start this without saying interviews. Interviews have been an absolute highlight for me. Having people on the podcast to share their expertise, giving them a platform to be able to share that, seeing them light up when they talk about the stuff that they're passionate about has just made my heart sing. I really enjoy doing the interviews. And of course, wouldn't be able to do a highlights reflection without talking about 2 of my absolute bucket list interviews that I have done in the last 4 years, and my first being with Amy McLaren, who is the author of the book Passion to Purpose, a 7-step journey to shed self-doubt, find inspiration and change your life and the world for the better. fantastic book. She's a fantastic human, and I absolutely adore the work that she does. So it was an absolute pleasure to have her on the podcast. I will link the episodes that I'm talking about in the show notes as well for you if you want to go back and listen to them. And then, of course, Amy Porterfield, who was number one, top of my bucket list of people to interview. She has been on the podcast twice, which is absolutely astounding. Wants to talk about her book, 2 Weeks Notice, and the other time to talk about courses in your business. So absolute pleasure to have both of those ladies on, and every guest that I have had on in the last 4 years. It's been absolutely amazing to work with some really fabulous business owners. So another thing that really sort of sparks joy in me is seeing the evolution of the podcast. We rebranded in April last year, and before that the podcast had had a couple of name changes. So I'm just really excited to see what comes next for the podcast, and I have to say I'm really happy with the branding. I'm really happy with the name. It's working for me. I don't see it changing in the near future. Sometimes we take our time to find our footing and where we need to be, and if you have been an OG, you'll know this podcast was aimed at a much smaller niche when I first started, and it's a broader niche now, so I don't think that there will be an issue going forward. But this is my podcast, and I am happy to let it evolve with me. So maybe there will be changes down the line. I hope you will stick around for them. But yes, I've loved the rebrand. I've loved watching the podcast evolve. And that kind of leads me on to the journey that this has been. So for me, this started off as just a way to reach this very small niche of people. It then grew from there quite quickly because of the pandemic into actually providing kind of a lifeline and a hub, a spot on the internet where this niche of people who were really badly affected by the pandemic could come and gain some inspiration, some peace of mind, and share what they were going through. And one of my most popular episodes in that first year was an episode with Lynette, who was talking about how, as a hairstylist for weddings, how she had dealt with the pandemic and how she'd worked through it. It was one of my most popular episodes. So it was great to be able to provide that platform for wedding vendors to have a place they could come and sort of gain some inspiration and gain some sort of G'ing up when things were getting really tough. So one of the other highlights for me was what has recently happened. So if you have been around on my socials and if you've listened in the last couple of episodes, I know that I mentioned it, but my friend and business buddy, Catherine Chapman, has launched her podcast with one of her good friends, Julie Clark, and it's called Far Too Fabulous. And at the time of recording this, it's pretty much available everywhere except Apple Podcasts because they're dragging their feet. But you can go over to Spotify and listen to it. And it is available on Podchaser as well, to name a few. So, seeing her launch her podcast has been an absolute joy to watch, because she came on my podcast on episode 25. Episode 25, so nearly, just yonks ago. So she came on my podcast as an interviewee, and I talked to her about getting physical during the pandemic. So I did a little mini mindset series back then where we sort of touched on different ways to kind of keep yourself going. And she came on and spoke about that. And then in episode 198, she launched her podcast the day my episode 198 dropped. So just to see her journey from being on the podcast as a interviewee to watching her watch me over the years with my podcast and start talking about possibly doing a podcast. And this has been something that she has had on her plan for probably about a year or so before she actually signed up to do my program. And she did the program with me in my last cohort of 2023, and her and Julie did that together. And last week they launched their podcast, and I am so freaking proud of both of them because they blew my stats out the water. One of the things I talk about in my program is that it is not about downloads, because there are so many things that can affect your downloads. People can listen without downloading. People can download and not listen. So downloads really don't mean a huge amount. What you need to be focusing on is why you're podcasting and what will show you that you are getting the results that you want for your why, rather than getting vanity metrics. But when you first start a podcast, it's really important to get as many people as you possibly can to start listening in that first week or so, because that is going to stimulate excitement, interaction. It's going to stimulate people to be sharing, and it's going to get your podcast traction so that you get a base listenership from it. Now, I didn't start my podcast with a launch, and in my first 30 days, which I would have released 4 episodes in that time, my very first episode had only had 10 downloads total. It's at about 47, I think, now. So I know people have gone back and downloaded, but it only had 10 in 30 days. So I kind of go with, it's important to have a launch process, and I talk to my students about having a launch process and what that looks like. And Catherine and Julie did that launch process. They followed the step-by-step nature of it, and they had over 60 downloads in their first 24 hours. So that just shows you the difference between not having a launch and having a launch strategy. So really, really important. I'm so super proud of both of them. If you haven't yet listened, go over to your podcast player, search Far Too Fabulous. Hopefully it will come up. If not, I will have it linked in the show notes, the Spotify and the Podchaser version, so you can go to whichever suits you best. If you do go over on Podchaser, I would urge you to leave a review, because podcast reviews really do help the podcast platforms take note and push the podcast a little bit forward. So I would love it if you would go and support them in that. And if you're over there on Podchaser, you happen to go and listen to one of my episodes over there, then please do leave a review for my podcast too. That would be amazing. So you may hear Twinkle in the background. I'm not going to get upset with her for meowing, because she's actually been poorly the last sort of 24 hours and has been barely making a sound, and it's been quite worrying me. So the fact that she's now meowing because I'm recording a podcast is just like, well, that's just typical, isn't it? But I'm not going to be upset about it. So if you hear her, please smile rather than frown, because she has not been very well, bless her. Okay, so I have finished ranting on how fabulous I think Catherine and Julie are with their podcast. The other highlights that I wanted to mention was serving the wider business community and serving the wedding industry in that first couple of years was really, really important to me. So that is something that I have been really proud of. And then helping others get their voices heard. That is basically what my business is about. I give guests this platform to speak to you guys as you're listening now. And I also get my clients to get their podcasts out so they can share their message with their audience. So that is kind of what this podcast has given me. It's given me that purpose in what I'm doing, which I absolutely love. So those are my highlights. Now, I just wanted to quickly ask for your help in helping the podcast grow. The podcast is something that is here for anybody who works in business, who is a solo entrepreneur, maybe has a few freelancers under them, maybe has a very small team, and just needs something to help spark ideas, help spark the imagination, give considered expert advice on different topics within business. And that's what the podcast aims to provide. So I would really, really love it if you would share this episode, literally share a link so that somebody could go and listen to it. Now, you could just send this in WhatsApp to one of your business friends. Just say, hey, I've been listening to this podcast. I would think that you would enjoy it, and send the link to them. That would be amazing. Or share it on your social media with a link so people can come and listen. If you can leave a review on Podchaser or Apple Podcasts, that would be amazing. Like, share and comment on my social post where I mention the podcast. That will also help it get out to a wider audience. So if you could do any of those things, they're all going to take you under a minute to do, and it would be really amazing for the podcast if you could do that. So that is my shout out to you and request. And now I just want to quickly talk about the Start Your Podcast program. So if you are looking at starting a podcast yourself, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. It's really important to have a strong why for starting a podcast, and I talk about this. I'm sure I've done an episode on it, but if not, I will do another episode shortly about the importance of having that why. And I always want to make sure that the people I work with are aware and their expectations are realistic. I am not somebody who's going to say, start a podcast, it's going to explode your business and you're going to get 1 million listeners in a year and you're going to get brand deals and all that. That's not why. I'm not here for false promises. But what I can tell you is it's a great way to connect with your audience, and it is a great way to grow your email list. And I wholeheartedly believe that because I've done it myself. So for me, that's why podcasting is so powerful. And if you are considering it, then I would love to invite you to start your podcast with me. So I run an 8-week Done With You program that consists of training videos that you can watch on a weekly basis that are going to take you through the step-by-step process. We meet 5 times during the 8-week program as a group, and the groups are less than 6 people because I want to make sure that I've got time to give everybody their individual attention, because where some people say that there are no special snowflakes, I believe we are all special snowflakes, and I believe that we all deserve to get our questions answered that we feel are important for us. So I want to be able to give you that time and space. So we only have 6 people per cohort, and I also give you Voxer access to me. So if you don't know what Voxer is, it's like a messaging app, a little bit like WhatsApp, where you can voice note me and send me text messages. I can do the same back to you, and so you can get real-time help. Almost, I aim to respond within 4 hours of you sending a message within working hours. Generally, it'll be pretty instant. But if I'm doing podcast recordings and such like, then it might take a little longer. However, you have that access to me, so you don't have to wait for a weekly Q&A to get your answers, and I will answer your questions. So that is what I do. That is open for enrolment now. I have 2 cohorts starting this winter. We've got January the 29th and we have got February the 12th. So if you want to get your podcast out by the end of April, these are the 2 cohorts to join. So you can go over to donnaeade.com/apply. I have also just added a new bonus, which is an extra 2 weeks of Voxer access to me post the program, because I know some people like to have a little bit of breathing space before they actually press publish on their podcast. In fact, Catherine and Julie did take a couple of weeks because it was over the Christmas period, which just allowed them to get a few extra recordings done. It allowed them to go over a bit of the coursework and just sort of embed that. It gave them a chance to do some extra things like their introduction and whatnot. So they were able to just use that 2 weeks downtime between the program and then pressing publish to get things finalized. I also think it can be great to stagger your launch strategy to start a little bit later than when you start the course. So that can really be handy in just helping to spread the workload a bit. So you can go over to donnaeade.com/apply. You can apply there for either one of those cohorts. I have a pay in full option, a payment plan option. It's all there for you at that URL. If you have any questions, you can send me a message on Instagram, Donna_Eade_. I would give you my email, but I'm not great at getting back to my emails quickly. My phone will buzz if I've got a Instagram message, so best to catch me over there. So that's a little bit about the program. I also have a done for you option, which I am opening up for 2 special clients who want to jump in on that with me. So it's a very special rate because this is new, so I'm not quite sure how it's all going to shake out in the wash. But if you want somebody to do your editing for you, if you want someone to just do the tech setup, if that's the stuff that really gets you, if you want somebody to sort of streamline, get the processes in place and everything else, that done for you program will be really good. I also have a graphic designer that I'm working with that will help you create your brand design for your podcast and get your graphics sorted and things like that. So it's a really good option if you are time poor but want to get it out. And I have 2 places available on that at the moment. You can go to exactly the same URL, click the button to apply, and you can select the done for you option in the application, and I can send you over some more information about that. So that's what I do now, and that's what I absolutely love to do, is to help people get their podcasts up and running. Just to sort of mention that I actually had a lovely testimonial from Julie the other day, and she said, if you're considering doing Donna's podcast program, I have to encourage you to say yes and sign up. Myself and Catherine did the program at the end of last year, and yesterday we launched our podcast. We followed the exact steps Donna gave us. The process was easy to follow, and I really do not think we could have done it without going through this program, especially the tech side. You will not regret it. Thank you so much for that, Julie. I really appreciate your thoughts. Catherine sent me some lovely words as well. Couldn't agree more. Donna's method has made it super easy. She couldn't have done more to help us. And that is true. I love to help people. I probably over give, in all honesty. Not always great on my boundaries. But since talking to Manaz at the end of last year, I have been better with my boundaries. But yes, my thought is, if you are paying me to help you, I really, as long as you're wanting to do the work and you do your side of things, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get it up and out there. So if you want to come and join me, head over to donnaeade.com/apply for that. Now I want to talk to you about something that has been sort of mulling around my mind, and something that I've heard sort of out in the ether, in internet land, in real life, with people talking about it, and it kind of just merged with what I've decided to do with my calendar. So I was on a networking call last week, and my business bestie Carly turned around and said that she is working with her clients more on slow business and soft ambition. And I was like, that feels so good to me, just hearing those words. And I have realized that I'm really trying to lean in to myself and my body's natural rhythms more and more. Over the last couple of years, I've put a big emphasis on my health and my health journey, and this is just something that has kind of organically grown for me, that I'm now looking at, what am I doing during my winter? What am I doing during my spring? And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, especially the guys, this is to do with the women's cycle, which is generally 28 days. And we have our winter time, which is where we just don't want to go out anywhere. We want to hunker down. We want all the comfort food, all of the carbs, and we just want to sleep and hibernate. But then there'll be other days where we're up and we've done a million things before breakfast, and we are go, 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 and we just have got all of the energy in the world. And what I'm trying to do is lean into that more and work with it rather than trying to force myself to do things when I'm feeling low in energy and trying to relax because I need to relax and everybody should relax on days where I've actually got the energy and I just want to go, go, go. So I'm trying to lean into that more. And this idea of slow business and soft ambition is something that's been coming up again and again in one form or another. And part of that for me was realizing that my calendar doesn't have to look like anybody else's calendar. I started working for myself partly to give me the freedom of choosing what my workday looks like. And a lot of us, when we start working for ourselves, just fall back into the corporate 9 to 5 hours. And in fact, worse than that, we do the 9 to 5 and then we're still in the office at midnight because this is our own business and we've got to get it going. So we actually do ourselves an injustice there. And there's a meme that goes around saying I left a 9 to 5 to do a 24/7. And that is very often true. And if that's you, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to the episode that Manaz did with me on boundary setting, because we really need to kind of pull that back. So off the back of sort of what I'd been hearing and what I'd been seeing and having guests like Manaz on the show, I've decided that actually I'm never going to be a 5 a.m. girl. I kind of wish I could be in some respects on days where I do get up extra early and it's all quiet and it's just so chill. I love it. But the reality is that's not me. I've always been a night owl, always been busy bee around sort of tea time and been quite happy and full of energy, whereas mornings I'm just much slower to start. I mean, really slow, guys, ridiculously slow. So my decision has been to change up my calendar and stop beating myself up about things and change it, do something about it. So one of the things that I was always moaning about was that I felt like because I was trying to put my health first and I was doing these fitness classes, that actually they were stopping me from getting to my desk on time, as in 9 o'clock. And therefore, by the time I actually sat down at my desk and started, an hour later tended to be about lunchtime, and I would be frustrated, feeling like I hadn't got anything done that day. And it was just, what was the point? And working with my health coach, Angela, she said to me, well, Donna, just put down like 3 things on your list that you need to do and just get those 3 things done. If you get those 3 things done, then you've made progress and you don't have to beat yourself up about it. And to some degree that worked, but the problem is no morning is exactly the same, or you know, there are different mornings. So on Monday morning I do an exercise class, Tuesday morning I do an exercise class. Both of those start at 9:15 in the morning. So by the time I finished, either had a shower or not, because I don't need a shower after mat Pilates on a Tuesday. But if I have a shower, that's shower time. If I have breakfast, that's my breakfast time. I then go for a walk. That's my commitment this year, was to go for a walk after my breakfast and get at least 2,000 steps done, so that I've done 2,000 extra steps every day for this year is my goal. So after I've done all that, by the time I sit down at my desk on a Monday and Tuesday, it's 12 o'clock. And then I feel like I haven't got anything done. Like, you know, I'll sit here and it's now 3:30, and all I have really done is script out this episode of this podcast that you're listening to now and got this far in the recording, because I started off by trying to do something on social, which actually took me way longer than it should have. It was very confusing to me why it took me so long to get it done. And then after that, my daughter came home from work because she's got a driving lesson this afternoon. She brought her friend and her boyfriend. They were talking, so I couldn't hit record on the podcast. So I was having a conversation with them. Then got distracted in my podcamp group. There were a couple of questions that came up in that, so I went to answer them and also to drop a new bonus. And while the kids were here, I was like, I'll go into my email system and I'll schedule a couple of emails. So I scheduled a couple of emails. And that's it. That's all I've done. And I feel like I haven't really done much, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to be working until my dinner is ready tonight. Now, I'm very lucky that Matthew is the cooker in the house. He will do dinner. So he'll come home from work and cook dinner, which, I don't feel guilty about, guys. I don't, because I'm sitting here working too. But, that's something that I have had to sort of deal with, is like feeling, guilty that I'm home all day and he then comes home from work and cooks the dinner, but I am working while I'm at home. So it's a struggle, but I am not guilty. I don't feel guilty about it. But I will work until he says it's dinner time. So I get those extra few hours at the end of the day when actually I am more energized and more prepared to do the work. And so then I actually end up getting more done, which is great. So I have decided to just keep that for the entire week, because what I was doing is then on Wednesday I'd get up and I would go to my desk earlier, and then I'd do the same on Thursday and Friday, but then maybe something had come up and things would change. So I was just decided that no, 12 o'clock is my start time. Before that, I'm doing my sort of self-care stuff. And when you think about these people that start at 5 a.m. club, they're not at their desks working at 5 a.m. They're probably getting to their desks between 8 and 9 a.m. So they've got 6, 7, 8, 3 to 4 hours in the morning before they actually start work. So I was just like, so actually I'm doing exactly the same as them. I'm just shifting my time. So I will wake up at around 8 o'clock, which is where I'm happy waking up, and I will do my meditation. I will do some reading. I'll then do my exercise. I'll have my breakfast. I'll go for my walk and I'll listen to a podcast or listen to more books. And then I come back and I get myself a cup of tea and I'm ready to work. So there is no rules that say that you can't do that. You can design your day your way, whatever that looks like to you. So maybe you are in the childcare phase of your life at the moment and you have kids, and the reason that you are working from home is so that you can be there for them. So my business bestie Carly, she has school-aged children. She comes home from the school run. That's when she starts her day. And then when she finishes her day, when she picks up the kids. And then she has the school holidays where she's not at work and she sets her boundaries accordingly. Sometimes she ends up back in the office in the evening if there's something desperately urgent that she needs to do, like come into her Facebook group and talk to us lot, because that's the most important thing. But these are the things that she does, and the decisions that she makes that are best for her and her family at the time of life she is in right now. For me, I don't have the school run to do. I don't have childcare issues. What I do have is this need to be up at midnight for some reason and to not get up first thing in the morning when it's dark. I don't want to be up when it's dark. So I work to that calendar. And that's okay. And I tell you, I've been running it since the beginning of the year when I came back to work, and I have been much calmer, much slower in business. That soft ambition. I'm not here trying to take over the world. Let's face it, that is not my goal. I just want to help some people. And so my ambition is to be able to make enough money that I can continue to help people. That is what I want to do. There's no grand illusions to take over the world. There's no grand illusions to make 100,000 in a year. There's no grand illusions to have £1 million business. That's not for me. And it doesn't have to be for you either. And I think we can really get wrapped up with social media and what everybody's putting out about, oh, I did this and I've now got $100,000 business, or I did this and I made 6 figures in 1 month. I did this, and feeling like if you're not doing that, that you're less than, behind, or have failed in some way. And that's simply not true. So I'm learning to fall in love with this slower pace, which I just really want to bring back, the slower pace of living, because I feel like we're all just going at 50 million miles an hour, and that's just bound to lead to burnout. It's bound to lead to mental health issues, and I just feel like our most precious resource is time, and we just don't get enough of it. And if we're constantly rushing around to do it all, then we're really missing out. And this kind of leads to sort of the last thing that I want to touch on today, which is I'm actually reading a book at the moment called If I Could Tell You One Thing by Richard Reed. I'm listening to it. It's one of the ones that I listen to on my walk. And as I was on my walk this morning, I listened to the little chapter that he's got of his conversation with Stephen Fry. And please don't come for me, coaches, in the comments, but Stephen is anti-coach, like really anti-coach. And he talks about don't get yourself a life coach. And that's kind of his advice. But what his point was that coaches are very much geared at helping you achieve goals and goal setting. And he was like, why are you setting all these goals? What happens when you achieve these goals? You just got to set more goals. So what's the point? And you just kind of, it's go, go, go. And it's like, you've got to achieve them, then you've got to achieve more. And that's kind of the general vibe in coach land as he would sort of see it. And the coaches are there to help you achieve your goals. But why is the question that I want to pose to you. This is what it made me think of. But why? Why do you want to achieve that? What is it going to do for you? What is it going to give you? And where does it end? Because for me, I think when we're constantly going after goals, and as soon as we get those goals, we set new goals. So for instance, revenue goals in your business, you might want to do an extra 20 grand this year than you did last year, or maybe you just want to break even this year. Maybe you just want to be able to afford an abroad holiday this year from your business. Whatever your goal is, you set that goal and then you instantly move on to setting another goal without actually taking time to celebrate the goal that you just achieved. And that to me is where we're getting it all very, very wrong. And we're just go, go, go all the time. We're not taking the time to smell the roses. We're not taking the time to be grateful for what we have. We're not taking the time to enjoy life and the people that we're living it with. You know, this morning I was doing my exercise with Catherine. I was doing a recording because in line with me working more with my cycle and being kinder to myself, I knew that I didn't want to Pilates this morning because my energy was low. So I decided to do a recorded class, mat Pilates, recorded class, stretchy mat Pilates. Within it, Twinkle came over to me and she just sat next to me and she looked so sad today. And like I say, she's not been well. So she's 17 and a half and I don't know how much longer she's going to be here. But when she sat there, do you know what? I was only half-heartedly doing the exercises that I was doing there. I was supposed to be stretching one arm behind my head and I wasn't. I was stroking my cat and I looked at her and I said to my cat, I will never regret taking this time to stroke you. I will never regret taking this time to be present with you. So I was kind of half-hearted doing my exercise until she decided she'd had enough and she walked off. But to me, I know that the amount of time I have got with her is very short. Not only just in general, you know, cats kind of 20 years maximum is kind of where they start to go. She's got medical issues, so the likelihood is that possibly this time next year she's not going to be here, if not a lot sooner. I don't like to think about it, but the fact is it's happening, and I can either be upset about it and just carry on doing what I'm doing, or I can take time to spend with her and not begrudge her meowing in the background of my podcasts and not get upset with her for being sick on the carpet or whatever it is, and just loving her in the best possible way. So I kind of want to leave that with you today to just kind of think about your why for doing whatever it is you're doing, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your personal life, relationships. Why? What is the outcome you want? And when do you get to celebrate? When do you get to say, I've done it? And what do you then go on to do? Because for me, I have a financial goal in mind for my business. And when I reach that, I really do not have the ambition to increase it exponentially. I don't. If I can increase it year on year a little bit, that will be fantastic. But I have no goals to have a 6-figure business. I don't. It's just not in my wheelhouse. That's not what I want. I want to be able to make enough money to live my life. That's the importance of it. So all that to say that I've changed my calendar. I'm now working from 12 until about 6-7 o'clock at night, and that is working for me. I will check back in with you as I do with these things to let you know how it goes. Please do share your comments, share your favourite episode with me on social from the last 200 episodes. Share with me your thoughts on what I've just spoken about the calendar. If you've got any questions about podcasting, shoot those over. But other than that, I will see you in the next one. We have a guest episode coming up next week, which means I've got a guest for the Mini Mindset Monday. So don't miss out on either of those, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.